Hello, everybody out there on YouTube. Once again, it's the three middle-aged guys. This bullshit about nothing. I am the Reverend.
The theme here.
And Grey Mouse 1.
And in this particular video, we're actually going to tackle maybe two topics. As you know, this week was E3 2016. A lot of big release information, a lot of big rumors being confirmed, a lot of rumors being debunked, a lot of news being generated from the biggest trade show of the industry. The one thing that we weren't able to get to in the previous videos was thoughts and discussion on Square-Enix's press conference. I'm just going to be honest, before we really jump into that, like I said in the previous video, I only watched the major conferences for the first-party publishers, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. I didn't get the chance to go ahead and see most of the third-party ones. But then again, we were in crunch time and trying to push applications out to the Apple Store. So life was happening to me. But I know you guys did, and you guys have thoughts. And after talking to you guys offline for a minute or two, I could probably interject with maybe a tidbit or so. So I'm going to open the floor to you guys. Your thoughts on the Square-Enix presser that was there at E3. I'm expecting that they probably had a lot to show because they always have a lot to show at E3. The floor is open.
Is it? Because there's not... I can't even gather my thoughts about Square Enix right now.
You want to start us off, Grey Mouse, then?
Well, Square Enix is struggling to, in my opinion, to bring JRPGs to the Western world. And a lot of the Westerners, like myself, have been pretty much begging on their knees and please bring this game over to the U.S. And a lot of things are that some of these games. The problem is the localization, and I'm not talking about localization as in, the cultural difference between the Japanese and the Americans and what is acceptable in Japan may not quite be acceptable in America. I'm not talking about that localization, that type of localization. I'm talking about it's just, you can't, there's some things in a Japanese game that just doesn't translate well over to an American audience, because a lot of the games that they do are games that, there's a lot of games in Japan that are based on Japanese mythology or lore or stuff that we have no idea about, that we didn't grow up in that country to understand. And for them to bring that game over to America to where, it's just really tough. And that's what Square Enix is struggling with, I think, because a lot of their games are like that. Because one game in particular is the Dragon Quest and the Dragon Warriors. I'm sorry. They were struggling with, some of the themes in it are, because of the cultural differences and whatnot. And some of the story we just don't understand because, we didn't grow up in Japan underneath, their lore or whatever. But Square Enix finally answered the call and is going to put out 8 and 9. Never saw a release over on the Western side, which I'm really glad for, and I'm actually looking forward to it. It's a game a Dragon Quest game I haven't played yet.
Yeah. The funny thing about that is that when you sit there and you consider that the Dragon Quest games are pretty much set in high fantasy medieval settings, I don't know how much localization due to cultural differences is actually that big of a problem for that particular game. All right. Which kind of brings us up to the other topic that I wanted us to talk about, because all of us can probably recall off the top of our head a handful of games that were never released here in the States, but would have probably done fine. Okay, that or even worse, they got European releases, but they've never come here.
Are we talking this generation or just in general?
In general, like I said, if it's just in general, I know all of us can name at least 3.
One of them that tossed my list is Shenmue 2, which is absolutely ridiculous. And it was one person's fault for that.
Bernie fucking Stolar, right?
No, Peter Moore.
Oh, Peter Moore?
Peter Moore was COO of Sega of America at the time. I'm not sure. Wait, was it COO or C? He was at a very top position, Sega of America at that time. He wanted to get out of the console game and was like, okay, even though the game Shenmue 2 had already been released in Japan and in Europe, so an English version was out there. So he was like, well, we don't really need it in America. So, not for the Dreamcast because we're getting rid of the Dreamcast. We're sweeping that. So we're getting out of the console game. But we see this new system called Xbox coming out, and that has a lot of potential. So we're just going to get this game and port it over to the Xbox. No, Yu Suzuki, we don't need your permission because it has Sega on it. We're going to just give it to the Xbox and, to try to start the Xbox off, even though Xbox was released in 2001 and Shenmue 2 was released in 2002. Yeah, it's going to do absolutely fine. But after that, motherfucker started doing some real research, and they found out the only reason why he did that is because he wanted a job at the Xbox division. And he even admitted that shit. So it's not that the game would not have done well because motherfuckers had pre-orders. The game was going to launch. The game was going to sell. Even GameStop was pissed that he did that. GameStop, because they had a whole bunch of pre-orders. So what GameStop did was import a whole bunch of European copies and sold them along with a fucking boot disc in order to do that.
That's how I have my PAL copy.
Yeah, exactly. Shit like that is like, look, the game is already out in 2 different regions. It was translated. Just bring that shit out. And that's what one of the real big nails in the coffin was when it came to Yu Suzuki dealing with anybody in the Western region. Pretty much that was it. And he was like, never again will I entrust these motherfuckers with my creation. No, because that's what fucking happened. Another game. Why isn't Capcom releasing fucking Miles Edgeworth? Why is the second one?
Ace Attorney Investigations 2. Yep.
That really doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't. On
top of that, a physical release version of Ace Attorney Dual Destinies. Why is it here?
Yeah. There should have been a physical release of that. Yeah. There are a whole bunch of games in Japan that could make way out here, regardless if it has a story or translation or not. It could see the light of day out here, and I don't understand why certain games don't. And the funniest thing about it is it goes the same way out there. But the main reason why you don't see like Madden games out there in Japan,
they don't give a fuck about it.
They don't give a fuck about Madden.
Yeah.
It's American football. They don't give a fuck about that really. So you'll see soccer, you'll see baseball, you'll see even basketball here and there, but football is too far and in between. That's just no. Then there was the issue with games that want to come here, but they'll receive backlash if they come here. That is a major issue too. Regardless if anybody wants to admit it or not, there are certain games that want to come here, but they are stopped because that political correctness issue. It just is, because Japan, as Grave Mouse is saying, look, their culture is hell of a lot different than ours. Look, just everyday life, in gaming, just in general, a lot of people will not understand what they like, what they dislike, and how they communicate as far as their language. There are a lot. I mean, if you've ever watched anime before, you know certain things are not translated correctly. So there's a joke that will go over your head, or you'll just misinterpret it, or you'll misunderstand. And it will be the same exact way if it comes to games. So having that been said, if it's not translated, and certain translations get lost, certain things cannot get translated properly. So that may be one of the big mishaps. But there's certain games that come out over there that would do absolutely good over here, and they just won't bring them out, which I just don't understand.
Yep. That's kind of what we're addressing. What about you, Graymouse? So off the top of your head, anything that you've seen that's come out over there that you would have loved a physical release here in the States, or localized for in English?
How about the beach volleyball?
Rewind 2 seconds, instant replay.
Yeah, that's why I went into the tirade that I went to as far as games that want to come out here and they don't. But
it's funny that things that are accepted in a different culture versus things that are not acceptable in our culture, and vice versa.
Well, we're supposed to be the most diverse culture ever.
Even, because like I said, I lived in Japan for 20 years, and what the Japanese find that's acceptable and what Americans find as acceptable is like night and day. I mean, you don't go around in America seeing maid bars and it's completely different. So, I mean, but the thing is though, like the thing was saying, it's like our culture is the one who's not acceptable to all things. It's like, oh, I'm offended because that girl's half naked. Oh, I'm offended that this woman is not the main protagonist or a damsel in distress.
Even when certain language is used, it's like you're going to change outfits. You're going to change language. And it's like, I don't understand how you would interject yourself into any type of art, any type of creativity, and interject your feelings into it 100% and just undermine the creativity that is right in front of you. That pisses me off.
A lot of people don't see games as art, but what they're forgetting is that the video game, you have to draw the character or create the character before it even becomes a video game. So it is art.
Here's the stupid part about that. Games, video games, and gamers have diversity already. There's different types of games for different types of people.
Yep.
If you're a gamer, then there's basically a game for everybody. Period. So my point is, if you're going to create excuses as far as saying, oh, let's not bring that game out here just because, no, bring those games out here. If it's successful, then the money will tell you. Especially if people have been begging for them. We're in the social media age. You have to be noticing motherfuckers that are asking, begging, knocking on your window at 2 a.m. for those games to come out here, and people will play them, people would buy them, people would greatly appreciate them. I don't understand that.
Not to continue traipsing through this minefield, because it doesn't make any sense. The that's probably the most frustrating reason why a game wouldn't come out here. When it's really being influenced by folks outside of the creative process, or even outside the publishing process, for that matter, that aren't even
outside the gaming community.
Yeah,
that matter too.
They're not even attached to the industry in any way, or even interested in participating, are going to sit there and they're going to be catered to in a point to the point where, okay, well, guess what? This game won't come out. Guess what? There are quote unquote politically correct and diverse games out there. You can find them. That's the reason why, indie games are such darlings to the folks who sit there and say that they want to change the gaming industry. Newsflash, they also fucking suck. So,
exactly. Exactly.
I mean, you can't blame us because there are people who are making games for what they think you want. They just happen to suck.
See, that's the thing about it. It's like, wait a minute. Every movie that comes out isn't good. Every song that surfaces is not good. There's nothing that's 100% as far as everything is good in each and every type of subject.
Well, let me say this too. What ticks me off as well is the simple fact that you got games like Depression Quest and stuff, and they have the right to exist. But when another game comes out that you don't like, all of a sudden that game doesn't have the right to exist because it offends you. And that's where the problem is. All games, all form of media, all drawings, all comics, all movies, they have the right to exist. That's not for you to determine for somebody else. You have no right to sit there or stand there and say that that game doesn't have the right to exist because I don't like it. No, you don't have to. You cannot speak for other people.
Here's the thing about it too. If something is good, again, people are going to own it. People are going to still play it or still listen.
It speaks for itself.
Yeah,
it speaks for itself.
Exactly. So, and everything, especially if it's meant for a certain demographic, that's fine. And that's with movies, games, music, whatever, TV shows, whatever. And there are certain TV shows that I will never watch, but I'm not going to talk shit about those that do because it's their taste, not mine. Fine. Live and let live. What happened to that? There is no live and let live anymore. There is no, that shit shouldn't exist. It offends me. Oh. And it's sickening because it's like, okay, wait, you complain about nothing is being diverse, but you want to get rid of shit? That doesn't make any sense at all. But we're going off topic here. Games that should have been here. Games that you wanted to be here. Games that we just was like, bring that shit here so I can buy it and play it and understand it because I want it in a different language and my shit is not fucking... my system, I can't play it on my system because it's fucking region locked. Whatever.
There's a particular game that comes to mind right off the top of the bat that you can actually get a hold of a physical copy now. But I would say that it's probably in that gray area of legality as far as the reproduction and everything of it is, and that's Seiken Densetsu 3. Secret of Mana 2. You can get a hold of a translated version through any of the repro type businesses that are out there. And like I said, it's really in a gray area of legality of where they're at. But that was one that was, considering that particular time that Square-Enix was just pumping out hits left and right on the Super Nintendo. And I don't recall people disliking Secret of Mana. It just made sense that it should have come out here. And man, when I first was introduced to the mainstream gaming media, when it was still actually about games, when they printed physical fucking magazines and paper, I remember reading and seeing the articles about Seiken Densetsu 3. Oh, you don't know what that is? Well, it's actually the Secret of Mana series. So this is the sequel to the Secret of Mana. And then they sit there and they're like, oh, The first one had 3 characters. This one has fucking 7. Okay, you have multiple fucking endings. They not only can they grow, but they've got different fucking classes that they can go to based off of alignment and everything. And I swear, for the longest fucking time, it was like, fuck, I never got around to fucking playing that, and it would have been really, really hard for me to go ahead and do that. Short of the shoddy excuse for Japanese classes that I took in junior college. But, lo and behold, emulation, that came out. Fan translation patches came out, and that became available, which is part of the reason why, for a lot of the things that we will never see here, I'm a big fan of emulation. Because guess what? That's something that I would like to see. But what's even more insulting is when you have a game that's fully fucking translated and it doesn't show up here. Now,
right.
sometimes that's for the best. For instance, 2 offerings from Sega. Virtual Law Force, which is Virtual Law 4. Guess what? It's all in fucking English.
And it didn't come here.
Thankfully,
Virtual Law kicks ass in Japan.
Yeah, thankfully I was able to go ahead and import it for the Xbox 360, and I could play it because it's region free, but it doesn't make any fucking sense. But we're talking about Sega here, so and this is post Dreamcast Sega, which has proven to be extra retarded on extreme levels. All right, but here's one that it went ahead. They didn't decide to bring out here, which I'm actually glad they didn't decide to bring out. And that was Project Altered Beast for the PS2. Project Altered Beast for the PS2 has English dialogue, English subtitles. Everything is in English except for menu items. All right, but you can sit there. You can play the game. You can understand the story and everything. You can find a translation guide on GameFAQs for the game to go ahead and play through and navigate through things. And it says Project Altered Beast. It's not Altered Beast. It fucking sucks. They tried to turn it into a Resident Evil clone where you're, instead of being resurrected by the gods and having a mystical power to change into the animals, you get infected by different viruses in order to turn into different animals.
No.
Yes.
I've never heard of this game, so
I have it.
Oh, no. We're not doing a bad game night.
We should.
Oh, shit.
That'll give us a reason to go ahead and bust out the video capture equipment and actually record shit and other things like that. All right.
You know what? That's an idea. I'm all for that. You know what? I stand corrected. I'm all for that. That shit will be hilarious.
Yeah. Let's see here. We already mentioned Shenmue. That's out there. There were more Mother games past Earthbound.
Yes, there were.
That never showed up here.
Yes, there were.
And I understand that, it's the JRPG genre is considered a niche genre, but after Final Fantasy VII came out and it broke the fucking genre right open to everybody, it just didn't make sense to me that they didn't decide to bring any of the other fucking games, even the ones that went on portable, here to the fucking States.
If anyone's watching this and that maybe thinking, why would you care about these games or whatever, think about your favorite franchises that got sequels. Imagine if those sequels never came out here. Just think about it. If you're a Halo fan, imagine if Halo stopped at 2 with that fucked up ass ending and Halo 3 never showed up. Imagine, I don't know, if you had, what if Final Fantasy stopped at 4 and you never got to anywhere else? Or, okay, I would go and slap the fuck out of everybody that works at Nintendo if this happens. What if a Metroid gets released and it's only for Japan? that would piss off every Metroid fan that's out in the West.
Well, another gaming series that I enjoyed them is the Secotan series. Actually, they continued to pass more games in Japan than they did here. So that's one of those games that you collect the
rooms. Yeah.
Yeah.
The rooms and find the 105 heroes.
100, and that is that's something that you would spend about 300, 400 hours game time trying to get everything, trying to see everything. There's just so much in there. And then they just said, okay, well, I don't think the West likes this anymore, so we're just going to not.
Here's another example of, like I said, that kills me, especially when I know the game is fucking translated already. The original Sin and Punishment on the Nintendo 64. Granted, they brought out the sequel on the Wii, and it's a great fucking game. But the original game was literally one of the most sought after fucking imports for the longest time, until just recently they went ahead and they re-released it on Virtual Console. All right. In fact, I've got a copy of it up there.
you know
I
what's
spent almost $100 on that motherfucker.
You know what's other things that's totally mentally retarded, and this what makes me want to fucking, make me slap Peter Moore in the fucking neck with all full force. There are Dreamcast games. After the Dreamcast ceased production in the United States, it kept going in Japan.
Yep.
For years.
Yep.
Not just months. No. Independent developers out there kept cranking out shit. It kept happening. And most of that shit would have just been just great out here. It's just, see, here's another thing too. The PlayStation 2 has a great library of games in the West, but there's a lot of shit that's overseas that never made it here.
Yep.
There are certain things I can understand why, like pachinko video games and maybe mahjong video games. I understand why they didn't bring those out here, but there are certain games that, or even collections, that didn't quite make it out to the West, and I didn't understand why.
The Sega Ages collection, which only was released in one form by Working Designs for the Saturn out here in the West, is one of the most sought after fucking collections. If you jump on eBay right now, the minimum it's going for is probably around $180. All right. The thing about it was that Sega released out multiple versions of the Sega Ages collection on the PS2, which had updated versions of all of those fucking games. And the equivalent to that, it was released out in United States dollars, was like $23 because it was released out as a fucking budget series, but it never came here.
That's another thing that fucking I just don't understand how certain games would just get the axe or get a stop button put in front of them. Damn, that's just.
And the thing about it is, as far as the localization thing goes, I know that's a particular issue, but it's not impossible. Reason why I say that is that the Persona series, of which 5 now has a release date, is actually thriving rather well. It's one of it's Atlas's flagship series as far as what they bring here to the States. And when they go ahead and they release those out and they localize them, they keep them as true to form, to the culture and the original source material as possible. So you can't sit there and say that, oh, the normal Western fan doesn't understand Japanese. No, look, if you have somebody who's taking any sort of time to immerse themselves in the culture in any way, they're going to be able to adapt, at least for the sake of playing the game and understanding the story. So the localization part, yeah, it's a bitch to take care of, but you know, and that's never been a concrete gating issue to bringing these games over. Usually it comes down to some sort of stupid fucking corporate decision. No?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, any other thoughts on this one, guys?
Oh, the Sega Saturn. That's like Street Fighter Alpha 3. Well, 03. Never came out here. And it should have. I mean, the Sega Saturn was just ahead of its time as far as the games. I mean, it had if you were a fighting game fan like I am, like X-Men versus Street Fighter, Marvel versus Street Fighter, those were perfect on the Sega Saturn. And I wanted to actually choke some people out that people said that they were better for the PlayStation. Yes, in Japan, there were motherfuckers in the military, in the Navy, along with me and Gray Mouse, that were saying, the PlayStation version is better. Seriously.
They must have not played the same games you and I played.
No. They're so embedded with fanboyism that they didn't care. Look, brick wall.
Wasn't it?
Adamantium wall.
Wasn't it it's X-Men and Street Fighter also, right? On the Sega Saturn?
No, that's what I mean. X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Street Fighter Alpha 3. No, they had their adamantium walls up like Hillary Clinton supporters, and then just, you couldn't penetrate with logic. No. It common sense logic, no, it wasn't getting through whatsoever. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, for my closing thoughts is that localization is a problem. The American side of the house don't get to see the great games that are available in other places, not just Asian countries, European countries as well. And it's a damn shame that it's, like the Reverend said, 9 out of 10 times it's because of the corporate bean counters. Just one, they don't think it's going to be popular enough to make a profit. And then they throw in that excuse or that card that, oh, well, I don't think the Western people can adopt to the themes that are presented within this game, which is a bunch of bullshit. It just goes to the bottom line is that the corporations just don't want to spend the money or the time to not port it, but to, translate it over to the other side. And we as Western gamers suffer for it. But what's beautiful about that was then, but what's beautiful about this generation, the recent generation in gaming consoles is that the only one that is still region locked, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is Nintendo with their Wii U. Everything else, Xbox and Sony are all region free. So,
even the Xbox One? I thought the Xbox One is region locked.
No.
Yeah.
It's all region free.
Unfortunately, the 3DS is region locked now. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I really don't know why.
Those are some hurdles that we need to get rid of, because I mean, even though if I play a game or if I want a game that is from a different country, I will go ahead and take the time to import that game. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't understand what's written on the screen or whatever, but we live in a society where everything's at everybody's fingertips, and somewhere somebody translated that game to a point to where you could actually understand what's going on, whether it be just the menu screen, like you were saying, or a virtual on, or straight all JRP or RPG from China or Europe or whatever. I mean, there's enough people in the world that's translated this stuff. And
to concur with what you're saying, the fighting games that I have for the Dreamcast aren't Japanese.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there are games that are not word locked. I mean, you can understand what's going on without even reading the menus.
Well, if I don't know how to throw a Hadouken by now, that's just...
There's no excuse for region games or for localization or for a game to not to be localized. You would think that a big company would want their game out as far as the far reaches of everywhere of the earth to make more money. That's more profit. I just don't understand. It should be, gaming should be a borderless, I don't know what a borderless thing. There should be no borders. You should be able to import or export or whatever. And, you know, I'm for that. Better, in my opinion. Good games, the better.
Good games.
Yeah, let me throw that in because
Well, here's the
those
thing.
are my closing thoughts.
You know, I mean, you know, good games, bad games or not. You give us.
Wait a minute. Shaq Fu made it to here and overseas.
No, I don't give a fuck. Give me a fucking choice. I'll make up my own goddamn mind. I'm a fucking paying adult, all right?
I agree.
I'm a paying
I
adult.
agree, Reverend. You're right.
But that's my point. It's like, okay, sucky shit from here made it over there. Look, just port their shit over here.
You know, like I said, I'm a paying adult. I'll make my choice. There's a reason why I support the niche game companies like Atlas, Axis, Nippon Ichi Systems that bring out that weird shit, because guess what? Somebody has to, okay? And they've obviously found a way to go ahead and make that viable, you know? And that's really kind of where we're at. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this one up, because we could probably go on a little bit longer on this, and we'll step into another landmine and even go on longer than that. But we're going to cut the bullshit short right here. Thank you again for spending the last few minutes with us. If you're so kind, hit the like button, hit subscribe, leave a comment below. We respond to comments because we love them. We love you. Hopefully you love us. We are the three middle-aged guys. I am the Reverend.
The theme here.
And Gray Mouse won.
Once again, for the benefits of common sense, logic, and gaming, and games that don't come here. Or go over there. Credits.
Nani wa desu ka?
What is that?
Is that a tentacle or a fucking dick? Dude, what the fuck am I playing here?